Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is absolutely essential for work, for life, really for everything: mastering difficult conversations. We're going to peel back the layers on why these talks trigger such a deep-seated fear in all of us, and then, more importantly, give you a practical toolkit to turn all that anxiety into real confidence. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why this is such a universal challenge. Then we'll get into the psychology of why these things are just so tough. We'll spotlight 6 super common mistakes to avoid. And then, my favorite part, we'll arm you with a powerful toolkit and some proven frameworks to turn these stressful moments into actual opportunities. Okay, first up, let's just all get on the same page about that feeling. You know the one, that knot in your stomach, the anxiety that just creeps in when you know you have a tough talk coming up. We've all been there, but why does it have such a powerful hold on us? So what exactly is a difficult conversation? Well, really, it's anything you find hard to talk about. It could be giving a friend some tough feedback, talking to a team member about their performance, or maybe setting a boundary with a family member. They're so emotionally charged because our self-esteem, our sense of who we are, and our most important relationships often feel like they're totally on the line. And all that dread, it leads to a really common and, let's be honest, pretty damaging behavior, just avoiding it. There's even a name for this in psychology. It's called the mum effect. It's our natural tendency to just not say the unpleasant thing because we don't want to feel the discomfort of being the one to say it. So we just stay quiet, cross our fingers, and hope the problem magically fixes itself. So why do these conversations feel so threatening? You know? Why do we avoid them even when we know we probably shouldn't? Well, the answer isn't that we lack courage. It's actually buried deep inside our own psychological wiring. For one thing, our brains are dealing with something called cognitive dissonance. It's this really intense psychological discomfort we feel when our values are clashing. In this case, it's the value of being an honest person smashing right up against the value of being kind and not wanting to hurt someone's feelings. That internal tug of war is just plain exhausting. And this leads right into another core issue, which is explained by something called face negotiation theory. The idea is that in pretty much every interaction, we're working to protect our face, our social self-worth, our reputation. Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. Our social standing was literally tied to survival. So when a conversation threatens our face with shame or embarrassment, our ancient brain wiring basically sees it as a real survival threat. And boom, there's your fight or flight response. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. As one person put it so simply online, the emotional impact is very real and very raw. At the end of the day, no matter how nicely you try to frame it, negative feedback can feel like a direct shot at our identity. And that just hurts. Okay, so let's see how all these psychological forces cause us to stumble, especially in the workplace. We're going to walk through 6 super common mistakes that even the best, most well-intentioned leaders make when they have to have one of these talks. The first mistake, and by far the most common one, is just avoiding the conversation completely. We just hope the problem will sort itself out. But when does that ever happen, right? It almost never does. Instead, the problem gets bigger, and the tension just builds and builds. The solution is simple, but not easy. Act quickly. The moment you notice an issue, schedule the meeting and get your facts straight. Next up is being way too indirect, dancing around the issue, using vague feedback like, yeah, your work could use some improvement. That doesn't help anyone, it just creates confusion. The solution is to be direct, but to do it with care. You want to challenge the issue head on, but at the same time, show that you personally support that person and their growth. It's all about being clear, not cruel. Mistake number 3 is a big one: making it personal. When you attack someone's character with something like, "You're always late," you immediately put them on the defensive. Game over. Instead, you have to focus on the specific, observable behavior. Use I statements like, "I noticed you've been late 3 times this week," to separate the person from the actual problem. And that brings us to mistake number 4, jumping straight into the disagreement without building any kind of foundation. Look, before you can solve a problem, you both have to agree on what the problem actually is. The solution is to always start by finding common ground. Get aligned on the facts you both can agree on. That builds a foundation for a much more collaborative chat. Mistake number 5 is so common, it's not actually listening. When you just dominate the whole conversation, you're sending a clear signal that their perspective doesn't matter.
And you're missing a huge opportunity to understand the root cause of the issue. You have to practice real empathy. And remember this is key. Empathy is not the same as agreement. You can totally understand how someone feels without agreeing with their position.
And the sixth and final mistake is leaving the whole thing unresolved. It's not enough to just talk about the problem. If you end that conversation without a clear plan, I can almost guarantee you the issue will be back. The goal is to collaborate on a solution together with specific responsibilities, clear timelines, and a firm date to check back in. Okay, now that we know the pitfalls to avoid, let's open up the toolkit. These are practical, powerful techniques you can start using right away to build your communication skills and handle these conversations with a lot more grace and a lot more success. So the foundation of this whole toolkit is active listening, and it goes way beyond just being quiet. It's really a six-part process. You start by restating and paraphrasing to make sure you've got the facts and their meaning right. Then you go deeper. You reflect and validate their emotions to show you're hearing them on a human level, before you summarize everything and reframe the conversation toward a positive solution. But what do you do when emotions are already through the roof? For those really tense moments, the LOY line method is an incredible tool to de-escalate things. It's an acronym that guides your physical and verbal posture to be non-threatening. You listen, you offer reflections, you wait for them to vent, you look at them, you incline your head, you nod, and finally, you express empathy. It's all about showing you're there to hear them, not to fight them. And when you're the one who has to give the criticism, remember, the goal is always to be constructive, not destructive. The key here is to be collaborative and really specific, always focusing on the situation, not the person, and for goodness sake, always in private. You want to steer clear of vague statements, public callouts, or anything that feels like a personal attack. So now that we have these tools in hand, we can start to assemble them into actual blueprints, structured guides for some of the most high-stakes conversations you might ever have to face. Think of these as your step-by-step playbooks. For delivering truly difficult news, there's a protocol that was developed in healthcare called SPIKES. It's a six-step process built for clarity and compassion. You prepare the setting, you check their perception of what's going on, you get an invitation to share, you give them knowledge in small, digestible chunks, you respond with empathy, and then you strategize and summarize what's next. It's a really powerful guide for staying human in the toughest moments. Now, for a wider range of difficult conversations, there's the nonviolent communication process, or NVC. It helps you visualize the conversation not as a fight, but as a continuous empathetic loop. You express your observations, your feelings, your needs, and your requests, and then you listen for theirs. It becomes a cycle of mutual understanding instead of a battle of wills. Okay, all of these tools and frameworks are building toward our final and honestly, our most important point. A huge mindset shift. This is where we reframe this entire challenge. We move away from conflict and toward curiosity, away from fear and toward an opportunity for real connection and growth. The ultimate goal here is to transform any tough talk into what's called a learning conversation. This means you have to fundamentally shift your stance away from certainty and judgment and towards genuine curiosity. Your main goal is no longer about being right. It's about understanding their perspective and, just as important, seeing your own contribution to the problem. At the end of the day, you have to remember this isn't about winning an argument, because usually when you win, the relationship loses. The real goal, the true win, is to build understanding, to keep your relationship strong, and to work together to find solutions that actually work for everyone involved. So, we'll leave you with this final thought to take with you. Now that you're armed with this new mindset and all these practical tools, think about a conversation that you've been putting off. What difficult conversation in your life can now become an opportunity for growth?